What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Battlefield 6 has been making improvements to their attachment system over time with the addition of some new attachments as well as some reworks, including the recent rework to hollow point and synthetic ammo. And while I think they've been doing a good job here and we have been seeing some incremental steps forward, I still think there's plenty of room for even more improvement here. And so in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some more feedback that I've got, some of which I've already shared in the past, but I just want to bring it forward and keep it all together alongside some new feedback here. But before we do that, I also wanted to share a handful of the leaked attachments that we're expecting to see for Season 3, which I'm sure we'll be getting some more details on very soon, but it fit in nicely with this topic, so I thought I would cover it here today. And diving right into those, the first one I wanted to talk about is the magnifier, which is going to be in the optic accessory category. And this is something where you can combine it with any optic that has a 2 magnification or lower, and what it allows you to do is you can toggle it on or off in order to provide extra magnification to your existing optic with your existing reticle that is on that optic as well. Now this does technically come with a downside, and that is the fact that when it's toggled off, you rotate it out of the way and it will be taking up a little bit more of your screen space. So it may be visually obstructive in some situations, but it does provide that nice versatility of being able to use the preferred low zoom optic that you want while being able to toggle that same low zoom optic into a higher zoom optic for those longer range engagements. So I think that's a pretty cool attachment addition. Next, another attachment that popped up in the leaks is the lightweight bolt carrier group, which for this one, I don't know which guns it's going to be available on. I don't believe it's going to be available on like every gun in the game. But with this, it looks like it's going to be in the ergonomics category. And with it, it only costs 5 points and it reduces your visual recoil. So apparently it will have no impact on your actual recoil that you experience, but it's going to be helping with visual recoil. And I'm very curious to get my hands on this and do some testing and some side-by-side analysis. I'll be sure to have a video on that, just to see how much this really helps, because in my experience at least, visual recoil is generally not an issue, especially if you tend to lean toward more lower zoom optics and a higher field of view. Those two things alone largely get rid of so much of your visual recoil. But either way, I'm still looking forward to checking this one out. I mean, with that 5-point cost, this might just be a no-brainer on certain attachment combinations where maybe you have that extra 5 points and don't know where to put it. But then finally, for another attachment that leaked that didn't appear to be just tied to like the brand new guns, this does appear to be at least somewhat universal. Again, I can't confirm if it's going to be on all of the guns or not. This appears to be a new 10-point compensator. And with this, it does the exact same thing that the new flash comp does. It reduces recoil buildup and improves recoil recovery, but this will cost half the amount of the flash comp, and the reason behind that is you don't get the flash hider effects on this, and that means you will be self-spotting. You'll have a diamond appear above your head every time you pull the trigger, and so that justifies the lower cost. And as much as I still really don't like that self-spotting mechanic and totally disagree with it being in the game, it does appear that mechanic is here to stay, and with that in mind, the addition of this new compensator would make sense. It just rounds things out nicely, so you can get that same recoil impact where it reduces buildup and improves recovery on a suppressor, a flash hider, and now a regular muzzle attachment that includes that self-spotting mechanic. Now, outside of that, there were some other attachments that leaked as well, but they appear to potentially be tied to just the new guns, like the M16 and the RPK-74, including a noteworthy attachment, and that is a full auto attachment for the M16 because it will be a 3-round burst by default. We will have the ability to use a full auto version of that gun for a 25-point attachment cost. Next, let's get into the next big section of this video, and that is, I wanted to share some more feedback that I've got, because as I said, I think they have been making some nice steps in the right direction for the most part when it comes to their attachment system. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I still think they're leaving some of that potential on the table. And they've shown that they are willing to make improvements and adjustments to this. So let's dive in with something that has always just felt off, at least in my eyes. And this is with various extended mag attachments, especially on LMGs, but there are many other guns out there as well that have these extended mags that cost like 40 plus attachment points. Like it's going to be taking up roughly, or in some cases more than half of your total attachment points just for a larger magazine. And to be clear, I think trade-offs are important, and if you are going with a really large magazine, then yeah, that should obviously cost more than a standard magazine capacity. I just think it could be useful to reevaluate some of these attachment costs for these extended mags, because in my eyes, some of them are just way too high, considering how much they're really doing for you. So like one example in the LMG category, for instance, is like with the M250, we get a 50-round belt pouch by default. And if we want that to go up to 100 rounds, which is more along the lines of what you'd tend to expect out of an LMG, that's going to cost you 55 attachment points. That's more than half of your total attachment points. Although that doesn't even consider the fact that a standard barrel and a standard iron sight and standard ammunition also cost. So the most bare bones attachment combination you can create with the lowest possible value while using a 100-round pouch is 75 of your attachment points. And it's also worth noting the larger capacity comes with inherent downsides like reduced weapon draw speed and slower movement speed when aiming down sight. So it's not all upsides to even use this in the first place. And as a result, when looking at examples like this, I just don't see why anybody would ever bother using this outside of just like a weird messing around niche build. And I do think they should just be more viable to select. Obviously, there should be a trade-off there. There should be some costs attached to that. I just feel there's room for improvement in many of these areas, and it would be nice if they could reevaluate some of their extended mag attachment costs. Now, on a similar note, and something I also alluded to there, I have seen many people ask for all of your basic attachments to be free. So like your standard barrel, your iron sights, your standard ammunition, and the default magazine that the gun comes with. I've seen people state that those should cost 0 attachment points so that you have the ability to actually start at 0 and just build your way up from there. And while on paper or at a glance, that does make sense in my eyes, I think they would have to rework far too much in order to make that happen, because that would immediately completely change their entire attachment economy, and they just have to rebalance it, and it would end up just kind of canceling out at the end of the day anyway. So at this stage, I just don't think it really makes sense. However, one element of that at least that I think would be nice to see, and that would potentially have a net benefit, is the iron sights. I do think iron sights should be your free option to, one, encourage people to use iron sights more often, because it does seem very rare that anybody uses iron sights. Part of that is due to the fact that many of the iron sights in this game, at least in my eyes, are kind of horrible. But the other part is it only costs 5 additional attachment slots from the default to throw a low zoom optic on there, and that's just a no-brainer most of the time because you're seeing quite a bit more of a benefit over the base iron sights by having that. Whereas if the iron sights were totally free and now it costs 10 extra points compared to the base iron sights to put a low zoom optic on, now I think there's a bit more of a choice to be made there, and I think I would actually sacrifice that low zoom optic on at least some of my setups in order to free up those extra slots and allow me to do something different with that. So yeah, out of all of those standard attachments that people talk about, I do think the iron sight argument holds the most weight, at least in my eyes, and I wouldn't be opposed to iron sights being a free option on your loadout. Now, I still have several pieces of feedback to provide here when it comes to the attachment system, but before we get into that, just a couple exciting things to point out with my controller partner, AIM Controllers. The first thing is right now until May 17th, they've got their best promo of the year so far going, where you can build your own controller fully maxed out with any feature you want for one set capped price at $219. So that means you can throw on the TMR sticks, which I highly recommend. That's a must-have on the controller to eliminate that stick drift. You can also get your digital triggers on there, digital face buttons, and whatever color customization you want, all for that one set price. And then on top of that, they've got a special promo running to celebrate their 12th anniversary. For anybody that buys a controller using my promo code or my special link, which will be down below, of course, from now until this upcoming Sunday at least, you'll gain access to enter a competition where you play a skill-based game called Aimtris, basically Tetris, and you will have unlimited attempts to play, and the person that reaches the highest score at the end of the event will win a 1-ounce gold bar, currently valued at $4,700. So that's pretty neat. Just wanted to make sure I was spreading the word on that. If you guys are interested in checking that out, of course, I will leave a link in the description of the video, so feel free to check that out. Now, getting back to the feedback when it comes to attachments, another piece of feedback that I've got here is one particular attachment that up until this point has been, as far as I can tell, completely useless. This is the match trigger. With this attachment, it says that it improves your weapon performance when in semi-auto mode, and it also reduces recoil and increases accuracy in semi-auto mode. However, based on all of the testing that I've done with this in the past, this just doesn't appear to do anything to help you when in semi-auto. It appears this behaves exactly the same as just toggling over to semi-auto mode without this attachment. And as a result, I would like to see something done to this attachment to really make it worthwhile, and maybe to make it more worthwhile to swap over to semi-auto mode on at least some of the guns in the game. And so I think first off, we should absolutely be seeing more of a benefit to our recoil and our accuracy when swapping over to this. But then on top of that, another thing I noticed is when using semi-auto mode with essentially any of the guns in the game, you're just unnecessarily harming your time to kill potential because your rate of fire is capped at quite a low value in semi-auto mode, regardless of what your rate of fire is with the default version of the gun. It could be a super high fire rate gun, but as soon as you swap to semi-auto, you've got a very low fire rate potential. So an additional benefit that I think would make sense on this is a higher semi-auto fire rate potential when using this attachment, just to provide that extra bit of differentiation from just toggling over to semi-auto without having this attachment equipped. It might seem like a minor change, but that would just add an extra layer of depth to the gameplay experience by making semi-auto that much more viable on regular guns as long as you're selecting this attachment. Now after that, another bit of feedback I have shared in the past, but I really feel strongly about this one, and I wanted to make sure I was bringing it up again and attaching it to this video. This has to do with ammo types. I feel like there's a lot of room for some new and interesting ammo types, but the one big one that I want to see is subsonic ammo. So this would be an ammo type that reduces your bullet velocity, but when paired with a suppressor, allows for full stealth, meaning you don't show up on the minimap, even for enemies that are very close to you, because as of right now, if you use a suppressor, it'll keep you off the minimap for anybody that's 21 meters or more away from you, but anybody within 21 meters will be seeing you on the radar. So having that ability to go full stealth with the trade-off that you're going to have a lower muzzle velocity, and you also have to use a muzzle combined with this in order to gain those benefits, I think that is totally fair and reasonable, and will open up more dedicated play styles that you can really lean into. Battlefield 2042 had a very similar system to this, and I think it would work excellent in Battlefield 6. So that's something I would really like to see at some point down the road for this game. Then on top of that, I've also mentioned other ammo types. I think there's potential for like a suppression ammo type that could give us a much stronger style of suppression than what we've currently got, even if it's just available on LMGs, for instance. Or we could perhaps have like an armor-piercing ammo that allows you to deal more bullet damage to enemy vehicles, for instance. I just feel there's a lot of potential that's being left on the table when it comes to the ammo types, and it would be nice to see more of them added at some point down the road. And then finally, when it comes to feedback that I've got here, I just can't help but feel in Battlefield 6, there is a key missing attachment category, and this is stocks. Stocks are something that on most modern guns, you can be swapping them out, and there are plenty of different styles out there that offer different pros and cons, and yet we don't have the ability to edit those at all in this game. And it just feels a little bit awkward, especially when you look outward to other games where most other games out there that have like a gunsmith style system like this, you have the ability to swap out stocks to not only completely change the look of the gun, but also to affect the stats. And I know this one might be a bit of a stretch to ask for, because to my knowledge, this would require a lot of additional work, because they'd have to model different stocks for every gun in the game, and that does seem like a lot of work. But it just is one area where I've always thought it was strange with their attachment system in Battlefield 6, where we just don't have access to change our stock at all. And there we go. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. I do think there's plenty of room for improvement when it comes to the attachment system in Battlefield 6. I'm glad they've been making improvements so far, and it looks like they're going to continue doing so and continue adding more attachments as time goes on. So I've definitely got a lot of hope for this down the road. But I'm also curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What other feedback would you provide for the attachment system in Battlefield 6? How do you feel they could improve it? What kind of attachments would you like to see them add? Or are there any existing attachments you'd like to see them make adjustments to? Just let me know down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to check that link out for aim controllers. And if you guys enjoyed this video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.